I'm really excited today because the Creative Digital Lab, we've been delivering services over the last 18 months. But over the last 3 months, you may have noticed have gone quite quiet, and that's because we've been under new management. So today I'm very, very excited, and hopefully she's ready to come out, to introduce our new General Manager, Hertie Rusu, who has been researching and looking at what we can do to move forward. So let's hope she's ready to join us. Are you ready, Hertie? No. Literally just being mic'd up, but then still it's just perfect streaming this, isn't it? So Dave, you've got I'll do some other instructions while we're waiting for Hertie. So Leon Barker will be talking shortly. He's come from UAL. And then we have Joe Gunn from White Label, Neil Ginsberg from Ruffle, and Dee Miller, who's downstairs, will be here shortly. Hertie, I have introduced you. Are you ready to join us?
She is. Hello, everybody. Hello, thank you so much for coming. It's amazing to be here. I feel so thrilled to be part of this event, but especially because we're part of London Tech Week. That's amazing. Okay, so as this lovely lady's probably said, my name is Hertie. I am the new General Manager of the Creative Digital Lab, and I am thrilled to be here right now and to kick things off with this amazing virtual production event. I don't know why you are here. We all have our reasons for being here. Some to learn, some to kind of take a sneak peek, see what's going on. But for me, I think that to be surrounded by creatives, you know, amazing people like you, the curious, marketers, would-be influencers, creative directors, that's what makes me happy. This is the Creative Digital Lab. It's not just a studio. You've probably been in one before. This is a game changer. This is where you come when you want to think outside of the box. This is where you come when you've got dreams, ideas, and you don't want to be hemmed in by boundaries. This is the Creative Digital Lab. And as the new General Manager, my purpose is to make sure that you and your imagination, you and your ideas are boundaryless. So I myself am a creative. My background is in writing and directing. And because of that, I understand people like you and me, people with brands on their minds who want to make a difference and who want to stand out. So my mission is to make sure that whatever your concepts are, whatever your ideas are, the CDL will make it happen and will make you think beyond what you thought you were going to be able to do. So I hope that's why you are here. I hope that's why you are here. Okay, thank you for being here today. Also, thank you to Croydon Council, who have sponsored and supported this whole event. I hope that you go away knowing that there's more you can do. And if you're wondering how we can work with you and how we can help you, please go onto our website. When you go there, there's a nice pink tab that says, say hello. Say hello, tell us what you want to do, and we're going to help you make it happen. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to talk a bit about my background first, and then talk about my views on virtual production and AI. But before I kind of go into the detail of virtual production and AI, I kind of want to tell you a bit about my journey and how I kind of came into this sort of practice. So, many years ago, when I first started studying fine art, film and video, I was interested in kind of exploring the ideas of representation and how to sort of capture sort of reality. I use art and the creative tools to kind of explore the world, understand the world. That's kind of my tool for exploration. That was the best way I could do to kind of understand things. One of the early projects that I did was it's kind of like a film, using large format film. Because I started when everything was analog, pre-digital. And I was used to kind of pinhole cameras, developing negatives, getting in the dark room and kind of manipulating the image with my hands. So, you know, I was used to sort of the tactile nature of creation. And I remember set a project, and I was at home in my digs in Brixton, and I was It was winter, it was very cold, and I was trying to capture the essence of that moment. And I had a bar heater, and so I set up some film, a little pinhole camera, and I exposed it. And this is the image that we see here. Whilst also trying to capture the image, I also tried to capture the sound so that we could have some audio visual, so that I could sort of capture that moment. But in the process of doing that, my tape recorder melted. It was this little plastic tape recorder. I didn't know at the time it was melting. I only found out when I kind of stopped recording, and I just was confronted by this blob of plastic. And you might think that was an epic fail, but in that moment I kind of begin to find out how the recording medium, the capture medium, kind of leaves a trace in that moment of representation, and you can never really escape from that. Whatever tool you use to capture a moment is left in the image. So the choices that you make in terms of what medium you use to capture whatever it is, it has to be a conscious choice, because you know that thing in itself kind of tells the history of the moment, tells the history of the technology, and also the sound that you hear isn't actually the sound of the heater, it's the sound of your tape recorder melting. So, like I say, this is the process that I use to sort of understand and learn about the world, and it's actually quite accurate to kind of, you know, quantum physics. You know, there's been multiple quantum physics experiments where they've tried to capture the essence of an atom. Is it a particle or is it a wave? You've got your double slit detector experiment, which in the process of trying to capture the data, it destroys the data through interference. And this diagram kind of represents the double slit experiment, where they fire a proton through one of the slits and try to determine whether it's a particle or wave. And depending on how they choose to view that moment, it can be a particle or it can be a wave, and you can never kind of get beyond that. So in my clumsy way, as an art student, I was kind of exploring, and I was discovering that whatever piece of equipment you use leaves a trace. Moving on. So digital happened, and I felt like I was losing control of the medium. Basically, you had to buy a digital camera which had all its color processes and filters already mapped, and I felt like basically whatever picture I took, I was left with a stock sort of representation of what reality was. So that was a Sony reality or a Canon reality. So I got really kind of motivated to really get to grips with digital and understand the digital medium, so that I could get back to a point where I had agency and I had control over the thing that I was trying to represent. So I got into rudimentary electronics initially by creating radios, signals, and then I went to the RCA and I got into interaction design and sort of programming and basic electronics. So this is an example of one of the works I created. It's essentially a SMS confessional device. That's how it was built. So I asked people to put their phones in front of this device and just open your IR port, and then you would be absolved of any mobile sins which you may have done. You'd be surprised how willing people were to open their data port and put their phone in front of this device, because it's pseudo-religious. Why not trust this? Meanwhile, in the back end, I'd hacked their phone, pulled all of their SMS messages, all of their data, and just sent them a random message saying that either they need to go home and pray, or they'd been absolved of all their mobile phone sins. So for me, this was interesting in understanding sort of trust and how easy it is to kind of take people's trust by pseudo symbols. And for me, this was really kind of a relevant point And I've always been a bit skeptical about digital. You know, I was one of those people who had a record and a vinyl and saying how that was much better than the CD. You know, that stuff was lost in the capture of digital. So I was always a bit of a skeptic. But subsequently, you know, scandals happened, such as Cambridge Analytica, where people trusted the Facebook social media, and meanwhile the algorithm stole all their data, personal contacts, and, you know, maybe thanked them, but what did they get in return? So for me, my process, my exploration through my art practice kind of was sort of giving me insight into technology, its uses and its dangers. So I did my MA, and then I thought, why not do a PhD? So I pursued a PhD in computer vision for gesture interaction, and I remember telling friends and family, yeah, I'm going to do this PhD, and people would look at me and go, well, yeah, good luck with that, because it just seems so kind of out there and left field. Fast forward to today, we've got chats, GPTs, and you've got your computers which recognises people and what they're doing. So it wasn't so far-fetched after all. So I completed my PhD, and then I did a couple of research posts where I got to kind of collaborate with various people in various fields. For example, I collaborated with a psychologist who was looking at gambling addiction. So here I made a VR environment whereby he could ask people who maybe suffered from gambling problems to put on a headset and enter the casino and play on the slot machine. He was interested in looking at near misses and how that affects compulsion within gamblers. So we created a series of experiences, some were with VR, some were app-based, and we were just looking at what is it that makes people keep on coming back and wanting more and more. Another project where I worked with a criminal forensic psychologist, and she was interested in seeing the burglar's mind and how they would approach burgling a building. And she initially set up some computer games and took them into prisons to see how they would go about entering a building. But she kind of thought, well, you know, is this really real? So what should we do next? Well, why not get burglars to burgle a police safe house? So I thought, okay, let's do that. So we put some reformed burglars in motion capture suits and see how they went about burgling a building. As a counterpoint, we got some students who didn't know what they were doing to do the same, and it was interesting. Students just went to the front door, went in, and went about the business in a really kind of novice way. The burglars, however, in seconds, had already gone up the drain pipe around the back, unlatched the window. None of us knew it was possible to unlatch the window in this way. We're in the house in a matter of seconds, and we're about their business, doing a burglary. One of the interesting comments that I remember hearing is one of the burglars say, "Oh my God, I forgot how good this was. This is such a buzz." At which point we thought, maybe this is not the best experiment in terms of ethics. So we looked to see how we could do it other ways by using VR and other ways in which we're not actually making reformed burglars kind of remember the excitement that they experienced when they were burgling buildings. After doing a few research posts, I thought it'd be good to actually work commercially. So I got a job working in an ad agency, doing virtual experiences for a range of different clients, such as River Island, Honeywell, Hitachi, EE. And so this project is for Honeywell. Now, Honeywell, they got loads of different products, probably this air conditioning unit might have some Honeywell parts. They also do bits for airplanes. In fact, they make a lot of money doing entertainment systems for people's private jets. So I got on board and I did some user research, which meant flying out to India and interviewing engineers and various different stakeholders, including pilots, air hostess, the work, anyone who is involved in aviation. And what they used to do in terms of selling kind of their equipment to high net worth users, they would basically ship a massive physical replica of an interior of an airplane and then invite their clients to come and have a go at various different bits of entertainment. So we were like, well, that's not very efficient. How about we create a VR experience whereby people could come, play around with these different controls and just get a sense of how it would work and how it could benefit them in terms of whether they were a traveller, an engineer or a hostess. So this is an example of an interior that we created. They could look around and then they could basically use their hands to interact with the various consoles. And this was using early version of Oculus, I think it's DK2. And you know, we found the edges, the limits of what was possible, and that could render without dropping frames. And we came up with quite a good experience, and Honeywell use this format for selling their stuff. They travel around with a VR headset with all of their interior sort of products that they can basically show people. And they also use this as inspiration to change how they designed their consoles. So now I work at UAL. I'm a reader in performance with expertise as a creative technologist, and I work in the area of knowledge exchange. So I basically collaborate with external organisations to develop research projects and just think about how people have access and also educate people into emerging technology. I'm lucky to work with amazing colleagues and also some really talented students. We've had students go on to do set design for productions such as Barbie, Pride and Prejudice, Atonement. We've got costume designers that work on Game of Thrones, all sorts of things. And this is just from the performance department where I'm based. We've also got amazing facility. We've got access to a volume similar to this, where researchers explore how textiles fit, how people move, and various different things that you can explore through virtual production. This is an amazing resource. I don't think people really understand. They're actually quite hard to get access to. So don't take it for granted. If you've got an idea, you should do it here, because many people are scrabbling around to try and build their own or get access to some, and access is becoming an increasing problem. You know, the best things happen when artists, creatives get to play with the medium. That's where you find the happy accidents. That's when you innovate. That's when new things happen. Unless you're playing in the space, then, you know, you're not really contributing. So if you have the opportunity to access a space like this, I think you should, because I think it's important that creators and artists sort of lead the way. Don't just leave it to engineers to decide, you know, how things should work, how things should fit, because often they're designed for engineers, they're not human-centered, and we have to fit ourselves to the system. I would much prefer that creatives lead the way, tell engineers that this is what they want, this is how it should work, and for me, that's when really good innovation happens. So as a researcher, I'm currently setting up a project with Punch Drunk. They're an immersive theatre company that are very well renowned, well respected within the immersive space. A lot of game designers, game industry looks towards Punch Drunk to see how they deal with immersion. I'm setting up a research project with them. Also setting up a research project with Les Enfants Terribles, where we're exploring puppetry and robotics. And so, yeah, that's me. So why are we here? I'm guessing we're here to kind of ask questions about immersive media, immersive technology, what the future holds, and what we can do with this space. So this is just a diagram to show the times when these various tools were invented. So there's the pencil, this is 1560. Before that, it's drawing, I think, traced back to 72 BC, 72,000 BC. So a long time ago, before the pencil. And then, so that's when they're invented. But I think more relevant is when they got adopted, mass adoption. So, as you can see, the mass adoption of new tools, you probably can't work out what they are. So we've got the pencil, camera, video camera, 3D camera, 360 camera, 3D 360 camera, and volumetric capture space. So these are popping up very quickly in a short period of time. We've even moved on from that now. We've got where you can create a video from an image, and even more now you can create a 3D asset, 3D model from a video. So things are progressing very quickly. I often hear people say, well, why do we need to do this? Why would we need a virtual production volume when we can use AI? And I just think, well, yeah, you could do, but these are all tools and we should be exploring them. And also, you don't need to be obsessed with the latest and best. Just a few days ago, I went to see Hamlet at Stratford-upon-Avon. They were performing with Radiohead. It was an amazing performance, and that's just a play in a theatre. So, it's not about embracing the latest technology. It's about developing a narrative. It's about working with performers and creating compelling stories and content. So whether it's with a pencil, a camera, or a full volumetric studio, it doesn't really matter as long as you've got a really coherent concept behind it. So why are we here? Yeah, to VP or not to VP? I guess that's your question. Well, it minimizes travel. So if you want to do shots on various locations, you could use a virtual production space. This could be the Bahamas, or this could be the North Pole. So if you've got a narrative that goes from location to location, why waste time on travel when you can do all of your content in one space? Speed and flexibility, creative control. There are many arguments for why you would use virtual production space. It's just basically limited by your imagination. I think anything's possible in these spaces. I think they're play spaces, and I don't think it's a question of AI or VP. I think it's use both. They're both tools, and for example, this awning was made with AI. These particles in this system are AI. This video here is an image, a still, that I rendered as a video through Runway. So it's a combination. All of these tools can work together. Increasingly, many industries and fields are using the same tools now. We've got Unreal Engine, which is used by engineers, filmmakers, games designers. So embrace the tools, learn the tools, be creative, and enjoy, make the future. That's it in a nutshell. Thank you for asking me to speak. I look forward to speaking to you all individually after. Thank you.
Okay, so smoothly into the panel. So it'd be great if you could all introduce yourself. Your name, your business, your connection to us here at Startup Croydon.
Cool. Hello everyone, I'm Neil. I am the co-founder of Ruffle, which is a creative agency. We work with brands directly on adverts, social content, all manner of content. Got 15 plus years experience in marketing services more broadly, and I'm a trustee here at Startup Croydon. working specifically on the Creative Digital Lab and commercialising that really as well. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Jo Gum. I'm a director of White Label Creative and also a trustee here at Startup Croydon. I'm a rather passionate supporter of Startup Croydon because I was an alumni here, and most of what I did in order to be able to run a business I learnt on a course here before we started White Label. We really focus on regenerating and economically regenerating places throughout the UK. We started in Croydon, we do throughout the UK now, in order to really get some economic and social value within the regions we work in. And that's why the CDL is so important, because of what it can deliver for this region in terms of the power it can give some of its local people to deliver really very successful businesses and outcomes.
How do you follow that? I'm Dean Miller from Siege, Business Development Agency and Marketing. I'm also a co-founder of Seminole, where we help SMEs to thrive. I'm also a trustee here at Startup Croydon. I'm a Croydon native, so naturally for me, encouraging and helping to drive the development of Croydon through a business capacity has always been a passion of mine. So yeah, coming to Startup Croydon has really whet my appetite for that, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my reason for being here today.
I'm Leon, I'm a reader at UAL Performance, and I work with Knowledge Exchange, and I'm very keen to develop pathways for access, and yeah.
Thank you, wonderful. So the first conversation to have is really a virtual production. Is it something that you're using? Can you see user cases? And Neil, as you're in the industry, you're out there creating video content, and you've got some really good clients. I know you've had some really good big commercial projects. Can you see user cases for virtual production now or in the future?
Yeah, so we work with lots of different brands across lots of different sectors, and for me, it always comes back to the brief and the objective of what our clients are looking to do. And I think Leon probably touched on this earlier. Virtual production is one of those weapons we've got in our arsenal. So if it's right for us to use virtual production and it makes sense to the clients, then we are proposing that to them and pushing it forward, rather than pushing forward technology for technology's sake. So, but the short answer is yes, and we have used virtual production in a few of our productions for TV adverts and out of home, sort of digital out of home assets, where virtual production is I mean, there was a slide earlier that talked about a lot of the pros of virtual production. One of them is probably a cost benefit, frankly. So rather than having for us to go on location where we are a slave to the weather, we are a slave to the permits we need to get from the council to film somewhere, or we don't quite have the sunset for long enough for that shot, virtual production is a no-brainer. But again, it's very much the same as saying using a green screen or a studio or using AI. These are all tools that we have at our disposal. So for us, it's about really just coming back to, like, is it right for what we are trying to do? Can we achieve it within the commercial limitations that we have? Often the answer is yes. If it's right, and we'll push ahead, and that's great. So it's quite exciting. And I think from the second bit are we going to use it more? I think increasingly sustainability is on the agenda of a lot of our clients, and virtual production feeds really nicely into that. So we work very closely with AdGreen on the sustainability of all of our productions to ensure that we're minimising our carbon footprint. And virtual production is a great way to kind of minimise and mitigate a lot of that. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to say yes, absolutely, if it is right.
Which product did you use VP for?
So we've used it for a cinema chain for some out-of-home advertising, where we needed to have various different immersive backdrops. So it was, again, basically moving what would be quite labour-intensive in post-production. We essentially front-ended into pre-production, which is fine. So that's one example. I'm obviously being a little bit coy of just not mentioning the brands, but and a couple of other food brands whereby, again, actually you're just in a very controlled environment where we know we can capture the amount of content we need within a day. And I think that's another point, is often brands are asking for a lot more for a lot less. We talk about content at scale. lots of different iterations. If we're in a controlled, sterile environment like this, it actually helps us achieve that quantity of stuff that we need, which is really good, rather than being out in the wilderness where all manner of things can go wrong. An example of this might be yesterday we were filming and one of the vans got broken into and a load of kit got stolen, right? Something you cannot legislate for, absolute pain. But you know, if you're in this controlled environment, you just don't have those issues, right?
Yeah, so I suppose we need to think about weather and crime in our marketing campaigns then. And Joe, same question to you really. Is it something that you're using yet? Can you see user cases for it?
Oh yeah, I can see user cases for it. It's not something we're using yet. And that's partly because there is a resistance in the industry in which we work to using AI. That's the only thing that I can safely say. So you did say you were going to ask me a question about, do I use AI? Yeah. And I would like to point out that I have signed legal agreements with some of my clients and the many local authorities for whom we work that no, I do not use AI, because obviously they would not like AI to be used because you cannot authoritative back check its referencing. Yeah, of course we use AI. It's a fantastic tool, as everyone said. It's like any tool. It's like social media or virtual production. Any tool that means you can work faster, more effectively, more productively is of enormous value, not just in marketing, but to any business. And I'm a business owner, so if I can be more productive, more cost effective, more sustainable, more creative, then it's an absolute bonus. And I think what it definitely does is it opens greater diversity, so you can get more people involved. You can use more exciting, innovative, imaginative ways of communicating stories. You can get more people involved in the interest in the industry because it's much more accessible. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. And we will be trying to persuade people on the journey of moving towards more virtual production.
Yeah, so I was at London Tech Week on Wednesday and heard the CEO of Channel 4 speaking, and she, I have to say, I was very proud of that. She was talking about the fact that they at Channel 4 have hardly used any AI as yet, and when they have, it's been quite antiquated, really. It feels like it's not really there, and it feels like we're sort of at the dial-up stage, really. When you think about the internet, we're still very early with AI, whereas we're talking about VP today, so let's get back on track with VP. But as marketeers, content creation is something that we're all having to think about constantly. You know, people at this event on Wednesday were just talking about creation of content the whole time, and I think the world is changing and the people that are coming into the marketing are changing too. So this question's aimed at you, Dee. What content are you seeing currently which you feel is useful in the world of studios, VP, and how do you see that changing for the future?
Actually, to piggyback the answers that they both gave, I think virtual production has always sort of been here, actually. It's been something that people have been doing in a crude and sort of like ad hoc startup way. It's just now, through advancements of technology now, it's becoming more accessible at a higher level quality. So I think what I've seen in the marketplace nowadays is people being creative, creators, especially YouTubers, people that are younger, much more well-versed in technology, are experimenting in ways that are making it much more exciting. And I think that's the sort of innovation we'll need. So, you know, seeing what podcasters are doing, YouTubers, online digital creators, especially in video production space, is very exciting because, you know, let's say podcast, it used to be a very audio driven thing. And nowadays it's become very visual. And some of the ways that people are actually using technology to build on that is through virtual production. So I think set designs like this, screen backdrops and elements like this are really building towards creating a new narrative in terms of how do you showcase what do you find interesting. So podcasters nowadays, rather than go to the beach, they'll have screen setups like this that showcase the beach. I'm just using the beach as a quick example. So yeah, but I think people are being creative with virtual production, and I think tech companies tried to push this narrative on us a few years ago, especially Meta, by creating free virtual spaces that people can actually become familiar with. And I think slowly now, I think that hard push didn't really work straight away, but I think now people are starting to find ways to build it into their everyday life. And I think the creators and, you know, young digital creators especially are finding ways to utilize the technology currently, which will then obviously spread out to the wider mass market.
So we talked before, Dee, didn't we, about the likes of Foot Locker and how they're using studio space now as a marketing kind of...
Foot Asylum, Sports Direct, for example, if you go in their YouTube, previously these companies, and both of you can attest to this, that, you know, they would have massive billboard campaigns for products. Nowadays, lots of these companies have scrapped their departments for billboards, for physical promotion, and, you know, they're moving that marketing spend into areas like digital programming. And digital programming nowadays looks like building content through content creators on YouTube. Because the same amount of money they'll spend on, you know, for example, if you have £100,000 budget that you would have spent on a billboard campaign in years gone by, now you spend that same amount of money creating a show production more or less with popular creators, and then that same marketing you had achieved through digital billboards is now traceable through online, like through views, through trackable clicks, things that are more attainable and you can actually measure. So yeah, I think loads of platforms are now starting to take that risk. JD Sports, so many. So I think we're going to see lots more businesses, traditional businesses, moving into that space where they spend less on billboards, or not necessarily less, but repurpose the amount of money they spend on billboards into different spaces.
And so this is very much talking about the future and future skills, and that's what we're really excited about. Being in Croydon, we've got the highest percentage of young people in any London borough, and so having this equipment here and being able to give experiences to young people is what we're really excited about. When I was at London Tech Week on Wednesday, it was the Martech Day, but I think these guys have been there all week, and it was UAL with an immersive showcase called Future Play. Do you know about that, Leon?
No.
Well, it was incredible software where they had a big screen and you could go over and move your hands around to create noise. It was all about quantum physics, and, you know, it was very technical, and that's all very exciting and very interesting. But where does it work in the real world? Where do you see that stuff sort of going to?
Well, I think that's an important space, the play space. I think, you know, some things you just can't do in reality that you can explore through, you know, the virtual play. So I think it's very important, very powerful. In terms of other spaces of development, I think quite often we think of virtual production just as in-camera stuff, but I think it can be used for live events. Increasingly, it's being used as theatre backdrops. Yeah. You know, if you go to concerts and look at the backdrops, they're quite spectacular. Essentially, it's the same technology. So I could see, you know, more and more it being used for performance, live performance backdrops, or, you know, product launches, stuff like that. You know, rather than asking people to travel miles and miles to an exotic location, you know, you can ask them to come here and you can set up the scene and recreate it for product launches. So I think, you know, we've only touched the surface on what's possible and what the future applications of it are, and increasingly there'll be more and more volume, so I think there'll be a need and a desire for more content.
I was going to add to that to say as well, if you notice these days, traditional billboards are being changed into digital billboards. Even on the train, you'd see where they'd have the normal like A2 or A3 sort of boards that would have been static in the past. Now they're all being digitalized. So you have to kind of think ahead, who's going to be putting adverts in those spaces. Traditional advertising companies, but also everyday people as well. And, you know, more or less all of us are going to have to be able to become creators to be able to actually match what the digital input was going to look like, more or less.
So yeah, Joe, you've jumped my question about AI.
I mean, I think it's, you know, marketeers, creatives, we all tell stories. Everybody's about telling stories. That's how you get into people's heads. We imagine the world in the way of stories. And I was just thinking back, actually, as you were talking. I recently went up to Birmingham, and I last was in Birmingham 30 plus years ago as a young journalist, and I was shown what the regeneration of Birmingham would be like. And I was with the Society of Editors, and we were quite a cynical bunch, and we went, yeah, oh, yeah, right. And then I got took out to see the first little bit of regen on the canal side, which was a picture and piano. Yeah, right, don't believe a word. So I'm back 30 years later, and what they'd shown me as a CGI 30 years ago is now real, and it's better. And, you know, I'm walking through it, and I'm thinking, That's how you sell it. That's how you get people engaged in what the future can be, because you can show it to them. So we're in Croydon. Croydon has a future that requires regeneration. If you want the investors to come, the shops to come, the pubs to come, if you want to be able to tell them the story of what it's going to be, these are the kind of tools that will help us explain that to the audiences we needed on board. So that's why I think it's so important.
Can I just, if I may? Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because we have I'm from the Croydon Business Association. One of the vision that we have is for 2030, and we were just saying that perhaps we can have a virtual.
I think that would be perfect, and I think, I know perfectly well that if you're out there and you're trying to talk to the people we need to invest in the town about the potential that it's got and what it could be like and what their buildings could be like and what the people here are like, being able to get them to feel it, I was going to say for real, albeit in a virtual environment, is going to be absolutely key. So whether or not it would be possible to get an initiative off the ground where we did that, I think would be really useful in what is quite a difficult climate to get people interested in building this place back up again. So yeah, I'll challenge us to see if we can do that one together.
So Neil, how do you see the future for professional studios when it comes to content creation? Because people use their phones, they're out on the street, people can do whatever they want, wherever they want. So where's the place for studios like this?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I think the sort of the drive for social first content means that people are able just to use their phone and go out on the street to create content at scale and at speed. I think the role for studios is perhaps to look at things a little bit more holistically. So I think Dee was touching upon podcasts there as a great example, right? So thinking beyond just moving image, thinking of stills, thinking of podcasts, thinking of the video element of podcasts, thinking of providing counsel from either a creative or technical perspective. I think it's been fairly apparent that some studios, across the UK have suffered, right? I'm talking sort of marketing production rather than film, although that's the same. And so I think they probably need to, where there is that, there's an opportunity, right? And I think it's to become a little bit more perhaps strategic and creative in the offering. So I often use various different studios for different needs and requirements, and it's always the ones that are able to offer something beyond the facility itself and are able to provide insight or information or support in a way that I don't know. I'm not a technical person, so if someone can help me with that, that's always good, rather than here, you're in Studio 3, off you go. It's like, I'm going to need a bit of help. So I think it's providing those sort of added value along the journey. For sure, hospitality, ensuring that the kit and the gear works, but actually where else can you provide that value? How else can you connect the dots between what's going on? I think stills is a really interesting place as well. We do a lot of still shoots and product shoots for various businesses. So it's thinking beyond just a hero piece of content that needs to be moving image. It's what's the long tail of that campaign? What are all the other touch points that a brand needs to engage with? Whether that's like web, social, e-commerce, CRM, all of that. A studio can be that one-stop shop for it. So opportunity is rosy, but I think it probably needs to pivot and evolve slightly to really grab the market.
Saffron, could I just ask, the past 50 years has seen a massive change. I mean, 50 years ago, there were no mobile phones, no laptops, the World Wide Web wasn't even here. And you look at what we have achieved in that 50 years, and I think it's more noticeable than the past 5-6 years. This tide of new AI, social media, ChatGPT is just coming, and it's immersing everybody. What do you perceive as being the negative side of all of this?
I have quite a strong view on this. So I think that any technological change is a change which provides you with a new tool. This is a tool to use. It's no different from the tools we've had before. It's no different from the kind of change you would get from steam or any other revolution. And it comes down to how you use it. So my concern is that AI will evolve faster than humans. And it will tell stories, but whether or not it will ever have that ability to be genuinely innovative, genuinely creative, genuinely do the thing that stories do, which make us see the world in a different way or give us new perceptions, I don't know, but I'd like to think that whatever stories it is told, at some point a human will be able to come in to give it that kind of balance. So that's where you've got with any new development, it's how you use it, not whether it has potential.
You only get out of it what you put into it.
Exactly. You remember that phrase of mine? Yeah, that's exactly what it is, yeah.
I would just add to that is that I think there's a danger of it being a distraction.
Yeah.
So, you know, I spend countless hours in lots of meetings with lots of different people, and AI is always like third thing down on the agenda, and you spend half an hour talking about it and then nothing happens afterwards. Which is fine, but I think, you know, with my brand hat on, I think it's a distraction from you know, brands are often quite risk averse and conservative. Why would they rock the boat when they're going for that promotion? For me, I always look at the personal motivations of who I'm working with, and actually to just go and do let's go and do an AI ad, it's not going to happen, you know, unless you're you know, whoever, Under Armour, and you're a challenger. Often it is just a distraction, and we need to focus on, I implore my clients to focus on their business and commercial objectives and how we can use storytelling to get there. And often AI might be a small part of that, but it's not this all-engulfing thing, right? And I think that's the danger, is there's a lot of talk, but the reality is that, and it will change, right? That will probably change in 5 years' time, but you've got to focus on now.
It's not an end in itself, it's just a thing. So, you know, you would say change the story, change the world. That won't make any difference going forward. AI will change the world, but how you control how the world is changed has got to be human. And it's got to be the same way that we've controlled, failed to control, mitigated all those big changes in the past, historically.
I think for me, my concern is it's actually making the creative process quite lazy. Like, people actually aren't using their own initiative as much as they previously would have. It's sort of like, now I just put it in AI and see what happens. And I think that's the main danger that I personally find with it, you know. And in both sense, it's going to change the world in a positive way through innovation and creativity, but also in a negative way in the sense that it's going to reduce people's originality for their own self, for our own human nature, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it when my staff send me something that's clearly been created by AI. I send it back to them because, you know, why do you want to do the same as everybody else does, which is what AI is teaching you to do? If you want to stand out and, you know, change the world, create a different story, then you're going to have to use a little bit of your own brain power.
I have an issue that it's determining for the creatives. You know, so if you're a young creative person, it's made for you. But not everybody is a creative person. And I just wonder what the longer term impact would be on jobs.
Yeah.
For the traditional youngster who's coming through.
That's my point about diversity. It does create greater access to this technology. So if you've got a creative, the chances that they can access this technology should be an advantage. And I would like to see that happen, and that's one of the things that this will be able to achieve here, is to increase access to the technology so more people can get involved. But with everything, there's risks as well as challenges.
Jobs will change. I remember when I first started out in business, the idea of social media manager was a myth that never existed. And when we first pitched it, I was quite early on Instagram. We used to pitch to some of our clients at the time, you're going to need a social media manager. They told us we were crazy. And, you know, a few years later, some of these companies have nothing but social media managers, actually. So I think there'll be innovations, because now there'll be roles such as prompt manager for the future, for example. Someone's going to actually have that job in the future. So there'll be parts of it that we lose people in terms of jobs, but then we gain it somewhere else.
Brilliant. I think we are on time now. Is that, yeah? We're wrapping up. Thank you so much for joining for the conversation. We're going to go downstairs and have some drinks and more conversations, so one-to-ones with everybody here later on.